Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching the Broken Meeple. This is a channel devoted to board games and honest opinions. If you like what you see, remember you can thumb up the video, share it on social media, consider subscribing to the Patreon, but most of all I want to hear your comments down below. Well, you were glad I did the last bit of the top 100, weren't you? Yeah, finally I got back round to it. I've given enough apologies for it. But you've all been great, you've all commented on the last one, and it was always good fun to do. Tonight's no exception though, because I was meant to be on the work social, but it got rescheduled, so what better thing to do than record more top 100 segments? You know, if I go at this rate, maybe I'll get the whole lot done before the end of Essen, we shall see. But yeah, we are already in the middle of the creme de la creme of games for me. I mean, ever since you get from like 50 onwards, we're talking 10 out of 10 rating games. These are just brilliant. I love them. I love talking about them. I love playing them. If they're in a game bag, I'm going to want to play them. But there are only so many games and there's only a top 100, so ranking them becomes more and more difficult as we go along. And certainly, looking at the next 30 games that you're going to get, yeah, it was a bit painful to say the least. Anyway, for this batch of 10 you have no new games. You've seen all these before. Question is, did you see them in this segment last year, or above, or below? We shall see. Let's get on with it.
Get on with it.
My 30 was my 40, it's gone up 10 places. I'm not entirely sure why. Perhaps it was just ranked too low last year, but it's been played more in the last year or so, and I have to admit, I think maybe after playing its spin-off Raiders of Scythia, I kind of thought, yeah, this is fine, but I prefer the original, and that is Raiders of the North Sea. I got the collector's box right there. Again, one of those collector's boxes that doesn't quite store everything the way you want to, but what the hell, it's a bigger box, it's better than the small ones. And so this one with both expansions, that is a caveat. I will always throw in the first expansion no matter what. The second one I can take or leave, but the first one is a definite Hall of Heroes. I've got videos explaining this, so you can check those out. But this is probably the first, shall we say, excursion into Garfield games that I was introduced to, this one, and I just thought, a cool little, fairly simple worker placement game with a cool theme, good components and artwork, and a little twist on the normal worker placement. The idea that you put the worker down, do the action, and then take another worker off and do that action. And so you're basically stuck there with one meeple the entire game. It's just, is it grey, black, or is it grey, white, or something else? I can't remember what colours they are, but you know, you're kind of just juggling this one meeple around. It's like, that's different. Usually you have at least more than one, you know, you have at least plural. But this is a solid game. Just go out, go pillage various villages and settlements and churches, get resources, give them to your chief for points, or with the expansions, you know, do quests for points, or just get a bunch of cool crew members. You know, you can do, you know, what you kind of fancy in this game. Are you going to try and pillage the big stuff, or are you going to try and get points in other means? I really enjoy it. It's not my, well, yeah, spoiler alert, it's not my favourite Garfield game. I mean, you know, come on, as if you didn't guess already. But yeah, I really enjoy this one. It's kind of like, oh, you've not seen anything by Garfield games yet. Well, you know what? Raiders of the North Sea. It's my entry point for a lot of these ones, although there is another one that may come up later on. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Raiders of the North Sea, there's not much else to say other than you should try it. My number 29 has jumped 13 places. Yeah, we seem to have a few risers so far in this list, although this one I'm not surprised by, because I've enjoyed this more as I've played it, providing I cap the players at 3, we'll get to that. But also, I played the little mini solo expansion for it, and it's actually one of the best solo expansions I've seen from Mr. David Turksey, I gotta admit. This is a game that isn't loved by a lot of other people. Some people like to poke fun at it, or, you know, say, oh, it's too fiddly or whatever. But it's like, I never have a problem with the way it operates. I find it pretty smooth and really easy to teach. That is On the Underground, which sits right down there from Ludi Creations. I mean, I'm talking about their new version of it. So not the one from like a decade ago. I'm talking about the new, really nice, stark white and color looking version. It's a great game. Now, cap it at 3 players. 4 and 5 takes way too long. That has to be said. 2 and 3 player though in this game is great fun. Very simple concept. The laziest person alive, although you can use a wheelchair meeple, in which case it's not really a bad excuse to have that you want to take the train. But what you're doing is that you're building rail networks on the London Metro, or the Berlin one in this case as well. And what you do is that you're trying to get this passenger to use your networks for points. He will always travel to a different spot every turn as dictated by a row of cards. And the idea is that it will always take the easiest route. Not necessarily the shortest, the easiest. So what requires the least amount of walking. And so you're deliberately building your networks in such a way to goad him onto your networks. But there's other ways to score points by connecting other spots on the track. So you can get points in different ways. It's pretty tight. It's usually like nail biting until the end. But I just find this a really simple and really cool game to tie up for 60 to 90 minutes. And the solo expansion is a little mini add-on from David Turksey, where I think you have to get it from Unity Creations direct. I don't think you can find it in the shops. But it basically pits you up against 2 cards which represent the... it's not really an AI, but you know, the challenge networks. They're pre-built, already there, and they start on a certain amount of points. The idea is that you have to, at some point before the deck runs out, overtake the points marker for the 2 other tracks. But it will be getting points as the passenger uses their networks, so you've got to try and build around their networks and be crafty and be really, like, you know, really efficient with where you're placing your networks. It's a great, really easy solo mode. I mean, there's barely any rules difference other than the fact the passenger moves twice each turn. That's pretty much it after you've done the setup. So easy, and yet it allows me to play this game solo. Probably one of the key reasons that it's bumped up another 13 places, because I think beforehand I didn't have that expansion. Maybe I've just played it more. I don't know, but some people find the passenger movement fiddly. I seem to be able to spot pretty easily where it is. Maybe it's just because of, I don't know, I'm an accountant. Perhaps it's because I can count, you know, quicker than most, but it's just, I find it quite straightforward. But yeah, cap it at 3 players, don't take it too seriously, and it's a really good fun game. I love it. Where's that expansion, Ludi Creations?
Where is it?
28 is down 15 places from 13. This used to be in my top 10. Then it dropped to the bracket below. Now it's dropped to the bracket below that. I don't think it's going to drop much further because I do really enjoy this game, but I guess after a bunch more plays, it's just kind of settling around here. Not to mention, this is one of those games where I kind of really want to play it at 4 players, nothing less, i.e. the max count. And it's not the shortest game in the world. You're talking a good 3 hours here. But that is a relatively unheard of heavy Euro called Terramara from Quinid Games. This one, not a lot of people know of. It appeared at Essen, it looked good, I tried it, and I loved it. But it never really got much buzz. Quinid Games don't seem to know how to advertise their games very well. They just plonk it on the table and expect people to suddenly buy it. It's like, come on, you can hype it up a little bit, you know? It's like, why not? But Terramara is quintessentially a resource gathering worker placement game. You put your workers out, you gather resources, and you trade them in for cards that give you special powers and abilities, or point scoring opportunities. You know, stuff you've seen before. But what's really cool about this, other than the fact that it's Michael Menzel artwork, oh god, Michael Menzel knows how to make every board look gorgeous. But in this, you've got different rows from your starting village at the top, and the spaces get better and better as you go down. But if you put your worker on a row that's lower down, you don't necessarily get them back, because the round counter ticks down, and that dictates which row of workers gets returned to your hand. So you can venture all the way to the bottom row and say, well, I get like 6 stone here. Problem is, you're not going to get that worker back for a good 3 rounds later. So do you do that? Do you get a leg up elsewhere? Or do you just say, you know what, I'll settle for 2 stone now and just put them somewhere where I know I'm going to get them back? It's a cool decision. There is legit reasons why you would sacrifice workers to wait for them later on if it really does accelerate you into the game. But then as you go through, tiles, it's a modular board, so there's different actions every game. Some of them flip over every round, so you get a new action that appears. And all the while you're juggling 3 tracks. A river track to get more cards, a caravan track to unlock certain spaces as they appear and point scoring opportunities, as well as the military track which dictates your ability to put out workers and even raid other players. Raiding other players is not that crippling, don't worry about that. But I want to play this at 4 players because if you play it at 2 and 3, you have the dummy player with their pieces out and some spaces can't be used, and the rules for it aren't written well in the rulebook. I find it a bit fiddly, so honestly this is one of those rare occasions where I'm like, 4 players, max? Yeah, let's play it. But it's highly underrated. A lot of people don't know of this game. But honestly, it's really solid. If you like resource gathering, worker placement, if that takes your fancy, but you want to have lots of options and lots of cool sort of positive reinforcement, then grab this game. It's really solid. Yes, it's dropped from my top 10, but it's still in my top 30 games of all time. I really enjoy it. It's just probably got a bit of a niche setup as to where I love to play it. But really cool. If I had a solo mode, I'd play it, that's for certain. But now, honestly, give it a try. Terramara, underrated. My 27 is one of the biggest risers on this entire list. It's come up 31 places from 58. That's saying something. A lot of that is because of the app, which I can now play it more often, but also I've played it more solo with the solo scenarios it has, and with those scenarios you can even play it co-op. This little deck builder has got different ways for me to play it, and the more I'm playing it, the more I'm realizing, yeah, why is this lower down my list? It's gateway level deck building if you just buy the little tuck box for it at the start, but you can expand it with Frontiers and all the various expansions, which I'm trying to remember where I've put the box. I think it's downstairs, but I've got like a big box for it. It's Star Realms. Star Realms is great. It looks gorgeous, smooth over Hero Realms. I'm bored with generic fantasy. This spacey artwork for Star Realms looks a lot better in my opinion. It's just more colourful and vibrant on the board. But I love the fact that, yes, I can play a 2-player head-to-head on the app with the AI, who creams you a lot if you put it on hard difficulties, but playing it head-to-head with another opponent is great fun. But I love those scenarios, the co-op ones, solo or with other players, going up against like a big bad, like an invasion fleet, or you know, the anomaly, or the big tentacle monster in the middle of space, and each of them having different rules and different setups, but at the end of the day it's still deck building, very fast, almost Dominion speed deck building. You play what cards you got in your hand, use it or lose it, and the effects are not complicated. Most of the time it's just chaining effects by playing lots of cards of the same faction. Dirt simple, although you can make it very complicated if you shove every expansion to date in it. That can happen, but honestly, I really enjoy this one. I don't know, I think it dropped further down the list because I just wasn't playing it much. I mean, a 2-player only game is very hard to get to the table for me, but now that I can play it solo, and now I've actually engrossed myself in the app a bit more, yeah, this is one that I can play a lot more often, and it just, I think when I just compared it to a bunch of other games, I have a rejuvenated likeness for it. So yeah, you like deck building, you like space, then why don't you have Star Realms? Seriously, did all these games on this list rise up? No, we are going to get to some droppers soon, but here's another riser, 9 places from the mid-30s. This is a very niche game though. I love it, I think everyone should try it, but it's not for everybody. I totally admit this. This is the heaviest game, I think, maybe second most, it depends what you think of Dead Reckoning, but this is pretty much the heaviest game from the card crafting line of games that John DeClaire has put out. It is niche, you can only get it on Kickstarter from Alderac. I'm waiting for the newest expansions to come through, even though technically I haven't played all the original content of it, because it is big, it is sprawling, it comes in a Gloomhaven sized box, and it is Edge of Darkness. This one is a mix of the card crafting system for Mystic Vale and worker placement. And put the two together and you get a very cool, if somewhat niche game. The idea being that you have all these different locations which you can customize to your heart's content. I mean, the variable setup in this is unreal. And then what happens is each of these locations comes with the advancements that you slot into the sleeves. It's the card crafting system. But they all appear on this central row. And so any player can grab them. And even if you grab a card and get an advancement and put it in, it's not necessarily your card. You have to get allegiance with the card and put your own sort of banner sleeve into it. But even then, it's not technically in your deck, because when you use cards, they go back into play, they come out on the row, and so other people might go, well, that was a really good card you created. You know what? Yoink! You'll get a bit of money because they've got to pay you for allied cards, but you might have really wanted that card, and it's like, oh, you've taken it now. Well, I'm going to give you money for it. I don't care. I want the card. You know, it's just a really cool system. And then on top of that, you've got that stupid oversized cube tower.
That must be Lord Farquaad's castle. Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
Where monsters appear based on the cards that get played. The more powerful the card, the more powerful the monsters. You defend against it for more points, or you suffer as a result. The cube tower makes it tense. I just really love how quirky and unique and innovative this game is. The card crafting system is one I love already. Combining it with worker placement and having that central row generates a lot of interaction among players. I mean, this is not multiplayer solitaire by any means. The variable setup means you have countless combinations of things to do. You've got like actual, not a campaign, but you've got like a mini story narrative of scenarios that you can go for the location layout. And I've got the original set, I've got the desert expansion, which I've barely tried. I've ordered the Frost one and the newest one, Emissaries of the Veil or something. I don't know why, because I don't know I'll ever get through all the content. I'm just being a completionist because, well, A, it's the only way I can get the game, but B, I just love it that much. It's big. It's not something I can play with a lot of people. It's certainly going to be, you know, long for your first play. Although, it has a very good solo mode in it, so I can play it solo and get a pretty good experience and try out more combinations. I really like this game. Not for everybody though. It's pricey and niche. It may be something that a lot of you will never own, but maybe if you're lucky and you live local to me, I might be able to bring it around and you can try it. But I know a few local friends who really like this game, and so if we're together, we'd love to play it. But yeah, every time I talk about it, I want to play it. It's just one of those games that kind of requires a little bit of pre-planning ahead of time, but really love it. Card crafting, it's just a cool mechanic. I didn't particularly latch onto Dead Reckoning, but this one, I really did. Edge of Darkness. Right, this is not the last riser. It's not the last riser on this section of 10, but my 25 has only jumped up 3 places, so it's pretty steady. I pretty much deserve royalties from Artipia Games for this. The amount I have championed this game is almost akin to Hanama Koji for Empress 4, but this one for Artipia, I am always championing, whether it's you know, the base game or any of the expansions, which I've done a full guide on video. You can check that out. This is a underrated Euro game called The Pursuit of Happiness. And no, I don't mean the Will Smith movie. No, this is a lot more cheerful. This one basically has you do the game of life as a Euro game. That's the best way to describe it. It's worker placement, sort of, but it's more action selection, really. And the idea is that you have all these cards with things to do in life. You've got projects, you've got items to buy, you've got activities to do, you've got girlfriends and boyfriends to find, you've got jobs to do. And what you're doing is you're acquiring these cards with resources which are effectively like your intellect, your creativity, your like social influence, that kind of thing, and money. You need money to buy stuff. But you choose what you want to do. It's like a sandbox game. I decide, you know what, I fancy growing a bonsai tree. Okay, I'm going to grab this card, level it up, gets you rewards and victory points. You're trying to get like the most long-term happiness. And it's like, well, I'm done with the bonsai tree. You know what, I could do with a date. Let's date Sheila. No, we'll just stick to relationship. I don't need to start a family. That's just too much effort. You know, I got a job to do. I'm trying to be the president of this car factory. You know, fine. I got a lot of money from that, by the way, though. I'm going to buy a house. You know what? I fancy going paintballing as well. Is it all this crazy stuff you do, and the theme comes out really strong despite the fact it's an abstract card game at the end of the day because of the stories you tell with the cards. Certain people I play this with are a joy because they get into the theme as much as I do, and we're just having fun telling the most ridiculous stories of our lives. In fact, the first time I played it at probably the first Essen I went to, I remember trying to create me. I literally started off with child trait, nerd, and just grabbed as many cards as I could find that mimicked what I've done in life. And it was quite surprising how close I got. But, you know, you can do things as ridiculous as get to old age and suddenly become a ninja and start a biker gang. All these things are insane. The expansions add things like kids and pets and all sorts of craziness, and everybody's very patiently waiting for the nostalgia expansion in the big box. It got delayed horrendously because of issues with the manufacturing and that, but eventually it will come out. We've just got to wait a bit for it, but I've got everything else in a box. I cannot wait for that big box because I need it to store it. But I love this game. Thematic Game of Life, the Euro Edition. It's perfect for anybody who used to play the Game of Life. I used to play it as a kid. I used to enjoy, you know, going around. It was roll and move, but as a kid, you didn't really know any better. But I enjoyed it. You know, you went around, you got your job, and then you just let stuff happen to you, get to the millionaire's mansion. Why I ended up with so many pegs in my car, I have no idea, because I don't want kids. Yet somehow when I play the Game of Life, fate just wants to give me so many pegs, I need like 2 people carriers to cart them around. It's kind of weird. It's trying to tell me something, and I'm not listening. Don't want kids. But yeah, Pursuit of Happiness is great. I love this game. I'm always talking about it. Where's me royalties? I'm joking, but seriously, royalties. I promise this is the last one that rose up, okay? The rest of these ones on the list have dropped. But wow, did this one rise up. You remember Star Wars Outer Rim? I said that was the biggest riser, like 50 something places. I think this is the second biggest riser on this entire top 100. From 72, it's gone up 48 places.
This man is overgasped.
It was a fairly recent acquisition when it appeared on my last top 100, so it kind of debuted in a decent position. I mean, to be honest, getting on my top 100 is already pretty good going, but it debuted there and it's like, right, I'm going to play it more and see what happens. Since then, it's had a little mini expansion, which has only made the game better for me. But the more and more I've played it, even though it's a little bit of a drag with 4 players, playing it with 2 or 3 though, wow, this game is fantastic. It is one of my favorite deck builders. It is such a cool theme. It has artwork that fits the theme. In fact, I would dare say this is the only thematic deck builder in existence fought from later games. Yes, it was in my 70s before. Now it's up in my top 25 games and it could go higher. Even, you know, with Cats and Dogs, the little mini expansion, it works even better. But this is just such a good fun deck builder. Your kid's building a fort, so it's got that Root style artwork, which I think works better here than it does in Root, frankly. But all the cards you've got are kids. And so you can only play 1 card each turn. You've got to boost it with other cards based on the suit. You've got like glue, spades, and squirt gun and all that stuff. It's think of like American Recess, basically. And so when you play the card, you resolve a private and a public ability in any order you like. Other players can follow your public ability if they can play a card of the same suit. That's all well and good. Here's where the theme comes in though. After you've recruited another kid from the park, you basically have to discard any cards from your hand you didn't use in the turn. And they go in your yard in front of you. When people recruit a card, they can take it from a central display in the park, or they can nick one of the cards from your yard. The idea being that because you didn't play with those kids, they have a bit of a strop. They get iffy with you, and so they go out, and it's possible that they change their allegiances and say, you know what, I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with Bob over there. He's got a better fort than you. You wouldn't play with me. Screw you. And it feels like South Park.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
That theme is already really cool. And then you put Cats and Dogs in there. The dogs, you play the dog for a special ability if it's got the condition made. If you don't play with the dog, it goes in your yard and then goes into the discard pile of the next door neighbor. Dogs want to be played with, and if you don't give them attention, they'll go away. But then, you know, they'll get sad. And then the cats, if you meet a condition, the cat comes to you and gives you a special ability for the rest of the game and some points. But then if someone else meets the condition, the cat buggers off. It's like, oi, get back here, cat. But cats will do what cats do.
I'm on to you, kitty, and you're in big trouble.
I think not, baby puppy.
I can describe a lot of this game by theme alone, and this is for a deck builder. Deck builders are notorious for not being able to represent their themes well. I mean, some manage it better than others, but it's difficult to make deck building thematic. Here, it works. It's a marvel of design that somebody managed to make a thematic deck builder, and the more I play it, the more I love it. You know, it's quick and easy once you get used to it, but then like I say, one game, you've gotten used to it. You've got a very clear reference guide to tell you all the iconography. Yes, I'm on a bit of a reference guide craze at the moment. And it's not too difficult to get hold of. I mean, it takes some players a little bit to get used to the actions, but a lot of it's just explained on that reference aid. I love it. I want to teach it as often as possible, and trust me, if I bring it to a convention, we'll play it, because I want to play it. Anyway, I've rabbited on enough. Fort. Love it. Right, let's get on to something that's actually dropped. Yeah, most of these games have risen up, but some games have to fall, and this is one of them. This one used to be, at one point, it was my #1 game of all time. Yeah, it was. For a year it was. Most of the time it was kind of operating around 2, 3, 4. But as time has gone by, more of these types of games, LCGs, have come out. Bloat has become a factor, you know, to get too much content that you'll never see. And it's mainly just a time factor of trying to get them played, even though I really love this game, and that is Lord of the Rings, the LCG, or the card game. This is a great LCG, one of the first few that I think came out. It's now reached the end of its cycle. It's got all the content it's pretty much ever going to have. It's now just recently had a 2nd edition core set though, with some starter decks and like a revamped way of re-releasing the content. If you are new to Lord of the Rings, the LCG, that is your starting point. Get on that. Don't try to find the old stuff. get in on this new release schedule because it's the new Fantasy Flight LCG release schedule where they put the big box out for the player cards and then the big box out for the campaign cards. Such a good way to release the game. It's so much better. Get in on that.
Salted pork.
This one screams out Tolkien lore, great artwork. It has the great unique scenarios. The campaigns are good fun to do, but having 3 heroes where you can have everybody from Frodo to Gandalf to various people out of Tolkien lore I've never heard of. Certainly, the people who made this game paid more attention to Tolkien lore than the people who made Rings of Power. Dig, but it's just such a good fun game. Play the scenarios, go fight monsters, giant spiders, which scare the living daylights out of me every time I flip the card. But I need to quest in order to get through the scenario, but then I also have to fight off baddies. How do I do it true solo? With difficulty, but play it two-handed. You can have one deck dedicated to one deck dedicated to the other, and the main reason I don't get this game to the table more is the deck building part. That's the flaw I have. I've got all this content. I could choose any scenario I want, any combination of heroes I like, even though I like to play thematic ones, but I hate deck building. Deck building in advance, I have to go online and find the decks and get the details and then go, right, let me find all those cards, put them into a deck, and then I'm piloting it brand new, and then I have fun playing the game. I just wish I didn't have to do the deck building part, which is why those starter decks are probably going to be something I'm going to want to get at some point, just so that I can teach other people the game, and yet I don't have to deck build ahead of time. I can just say, whoop, here you go, you're elves, you're dwarfs, I'm Gondor, let's go. And it's a great game, but yeah, it can't really hang around in the top 10 for the difficulties I have getting it to the table. But still, top 25, who's complaining?
Throw yourself in next time and rid us of your stupidity.
Well, Lord of the Rings LCG dropped 8 places. This one also dropped 8 places. And strangely enough, I did not tailor this, okay? This happened by complete fluke. One LCG is followed by another LCG that fell the exact same number of places because they've both been neck and neck, because I could flip-flop any day as to which one I prefer, and this one is Arkham Horror, the card game. This one is getting to a point where bloat is now a problem. I mean, they've now just released the Scarlet Keys expansion for investigator cards, and I'm like, blimey, I've already got a lot for this game as it is. I don't get it to the table often enough to justify all the content, but this is, the campaigns for things like Marvel Champions are a bit meh, not really fussed. The Lord of the Rings ones are decent, but nothing amazing. Campaigns for Arkham Horror, the card game, though, are a lot more fun. You start out with a basic deck, and then as time goes on, you level up the cards in your deck, spending experience and creating better, more powerful decks. It is wonderfully thematic. The stories that it tells in the campaigns, particularly, I think the highlight has been Lost Carcosa. I think Lost Carcosa was like a fantastic story, that one. I really enjoyed the, what was it called? The Innsmouth one, Innsmouth Conspiracy. I thought that was a really good story. As much as the what are they called? The Dreamwalkers or Dreams something? I can't remember, but the Dreamlands one. As much as that scared the living daylights out of me, seriously, a Cthulhu campaign about spiders, that took some dread getting through. I actually sweated playing the game because I was dreading flipping over any card in case I got scared to death playing it. It was that scary. For me, anyway. I'm arachnophobic.
Hi.
Hello.
It's a really cool, entertaining game. All the combinations of decks I can have, all the different scenarios. It just might be getting to that bloat part where I've got to decide, look, okay, how much more content do I really need for this game and how often can I get it to the table? But I've played multiplayer scenarios at conventions. They've been really good fun, like the big epic ones. I remember very wholeheartedly a UK Games Expo one. In fact, one of the photos that appears on my podcast intro, the Broken Meeple show, is actually me and 2 other guys at UK Games Expo having finished and completed one of the multiplayer epic scenarios for Arkham Horror, the card game. It's generated a lot of good memories, and I still really enjoy this game. It's just, bloat can be a thing. It's a factor. Maybe that's something I should put into a podcast episode one day. Anyway, moving on. Amma 21 is a dropper as well, but only 4 places. I mean, the other ones were only 8. Not a massive deal at this point. It's still a fantastic game. It was 17, now it's 21. This is possibly my favorite deck builder, actually. Is it? That's an interesting prospect. I mean, favorite pure deck builder probably, although this could actually be overtaken by Fort if Fort carries on at this rate. But I've championed this game from Alderac. I've got the little box, I've got the premium set. This is Valley of the Kings. Valley of the Kings is a very cool simple deck builder where every card has multi-use, and I love multi-use cards. It works great for me. And the idea with this one is that they can be played for an ability, played for coin value, or entombed. What's entombed? Entombed's how you score points. When it's in your deck, it ain't worth diddly squat, but it's got a cool effect. Fantastic, and it lets you get more cards from this crumbling pyramid every turn. Fantastic. Problem is, by the end of the game, you're only scoring for set collection based on what you've entombed. So at some point you have to get it out of your deck. But when do you do that? The game kind of acts as a bit of a snowball, like it starts off slow and then rolls quicker down the hill. And so at some point you've got to make that decision. Do I entomb this now? Do I not care about the ability, in which case let's pug it away? Or do I really like playing that ability on everybody every turn? Well, I got to put it in there some point, but when do I do it? It's a great little decision to make, but other than that, it's a pretty simple style deck builder, much like a Dominion thing. Play it or lose it. Cards with lots of abilities, not too complicated, although the expansions did throw in some more quirky ones. But with the premium set, you've got those gorgeous tarot cards. I love the artwork and all the expansions, but it is a bit of a big box. But then I've got the small box as well for travel, where I can hold both expansions unsleeved. And so it just makes for a really cool travel card game, which has got a decent amount of meat for it. I mean, I wouldn't call it gateway by any means, no way, but it's certainly a fun game. I love it. Valley of the Kings. Let's wrap this up. And there we go, another batch of 10. I must admit, my voice feels like it's going at the moment. I need to be a little bit careful, so maybe I won't do the other section of 10 tonight. We'll see. Maybe I just need a cup of chamomile tea. But yeah, 30 to 21. Games that I am just like, love them. Love all these games, and yet I've still got 20 more to talk about. What could possibly beat these games, you might ask? Well, you're going to find out soon. It's great to start talking about these things again. But the next section of 10, you've also seen them all before. So yeah, the remaining new games are in the top 10 of all time. So that's certainly going to be one to check out. But you've seen these next 10, but by all means, God, they're fantastic games. I love it. Cannot wait. So that's it for me. You've been watching The Broken Meeple, and I'm Luke Hector. If you like what you see, please remember you can thumb up the video, you can subscribe to the channel or the Patreon, but most importantly, share this out on social media, get the word out, and leave your comments below. I've just talked to about 10 fantastic games. What are your thoughts? Positive or negative? I want to hear them. Until next time, you can check out the top 100 from the starting point. Failing that, I've done some reviews for Portal games lately. In fact, why don't you check out a little game called Basilica that you might not have heard of, a little tiny 2-player abstract game. Take care, and remember as always, regardless of where these games fit in your top 100, they're still only games. Bye for now.